And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Remember to hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. Appreciate all of you who've joined our community over the past few days. Let's see if we can keep that momentum going. Now, we've already gone through all the other 5 divisions in baseball. This video, we're going over the NL West, the most anticipated division of them all. It has the LA Dodgers versus the San Diego Padres. Who finishes 1? Who finishes 2? Maybe you're a Giants fan and you believe in that 107-win season. Maybe it's going to be duplicated or even get better from it. Maybe they win the series. If you're a Diamondbacks fan or a Rockies fan, maybe you build this year and maybe you're in contention next year. Maybe you believe you're already in contention. Let us know in the comments section which team you're a fan of, who you're pulling for, who you think comes out on top. But without further ado, let's get it started with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the Los Angeles Dodgers have probably been the class of this division for about the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. They did win a World Series out of all their trials and tribulations. And they've gotten a little bit better this offseason as well from an offensive standpoint with Freddie Freeman. However, they did lose Corey Seager. They lost Max Scherzer from a starting staff. They don't have Trevor Bauer as well. Clayton Kershaw's coming off of injury. Walker Buehler was great last year. Julio Urias doesn't get talked about enough. He's your number 3 with Scherzer gone, with Scherzer gone this year and Bauer not there. Andrew Heaney, they brought him in after a less than stellar year with the Yankees. And then, of course, they have Tyler Anderson. They have a number of depth options in the minors as well, but not nearly the quality that they've had over the years in a Ross Stripling here or Dustin May there. They may end up getting some of those pieces back due to injury. They have quite the talent base that is on the IL right now to start the season, and a lot of those are starters. So as the season goes along, maybe they come along and provide some innings that they're going to need down the stretch. But let's kind of start at the top. First and foremost, Mookie Betts is going to be your leadoff hitter, great right fielder, MVP candidate year in and year out. He is small in stature, but he makes up for it with his speed and his bat. Does not lack for power. But he's not afraid to just hit doubles if he needs to. He hits the ball to where it's pitched, and and he doesn't always have to pull the ball in order to knock it out of the ballpark either. Great all-around player. Second is going to be Freddie Freeman. He was in that 2-hole with the Atlanta Braves. He's going to be in the 2-hole here after Corey Seager was in the 2-hole last year. He kind of fills in nicely there, provides that left-handed hitter that they lose in Corey Seager. However, I think his offense is just a little bit better, and the defense that they gain at first base will be very beneficial to them. Having Trey Turner is the ultimate luxury. He is going to be your 3 hitter. Not much of a power hitter, but he's definitely an on-base guy. And once you get him on base, that speed is lethal. He can steal you first. He can almost steal you first if he could. He will steal you second base. He'll even steal you third sometimes. And I wouldn't be shocked if he stole home a couple of times this year. He is that fast, that much of an impact player. The interesting part for the Dodgers is, are they willing to pay Trey Turner? They weren't willing to pay Max Scherzer. However, they were in the running for him. They weren't willing to pay Corey Seager, even though they mentioned that they did want to bring him back, but ultimately did not. Now, remember, this front office staff does have some ties to teams that were willing to look at payroll a different way than other franchises that have bigger payrolls have in the past. They have some of their management staff from the Tampa Bay Rays. What are the Rays known for? They're known for finding replacement level players and getting the most out of them. I worry about that becoming too much of a thing with this team. They've always worked with platoons in the outfield. They did move A.J. Pollock in a deal for Craig Kimbrell to shore up that bullpen anyway. I am a little bit worried about the losses that they're starting to sustain. The starting staff is starting to have a few holes in it. Walker Buehler is still a Cy Young candidate. Julio Urias does not get mentioned at all for Cy Young competition just because of the staff that he's in. There's already a number of great starters there. At least there have been over the past couple of years. Bauer isn't there. Kershaw's probably going to have some injuries at some point this year. Walker Buehler is probably the number 1. But Urias deserves some pub for what he's done the past few years. I think he won 21 games. He's been great the last couple of years. He has fought through injury here and there, but think of how good Kenta Maeda was for them before they moved him on to the Minnesota Twins. He's been even better than that. There's a reason why they hung on to their top prospects, Jock Peterson, Corey Seager, and Julio Urias for years. It seems like the pitcher is the one that they want to keep. On the lineup side, they're going to move Max Muncy over to second base after they lose Corey Seager. They move Trey Turner from second to short. Freddie Freeman slots in at that first base spot. Will Smith is your catcher. Justin Turner is your third baseman. The one thing for me about this lineup, the mystery is going to be Cody Bellinger. I'm very worried, just like I am about Christian Yelich being able to regain that MVP level talent that they have. I'm worried that Corey Bellinger may not get there. I believe he will have a better career in the long run than Christian Yelich at this point right now, but I'm not sold on him ever being a 300 hitter. I'm not even sold on him being a 270 hitter. I'm not sold on him being a 250 hitter. I just don't see it. The production isn't there. He's just in his head way too much. He can't get out of his own way. And that's partially on coaching staff. They haven't done enough to get him out of his own head and get him back to basics and get him back to playing baseball for the reasons he originally started playing baseball. If he gets out of his way, Cody Bellinger could be much better this year, but I don't see it happening. I see some improvement, but I'm not expecting 270 with 35 home runs and 100 RBIs. I don't see that ever happening again for Cody Bellinger. They still have Chris Taylor. They did bring him back. I believe it was a 4-year, $64 million deal. They gave him a qualifying offer in the offseason. There was a number of teams interested in on him. Pretty much everybody at that price. Who wouldn't be? That's a great deal for a great player who can play a number of different positions. All three of the outfield spots. He can play some third, play some second, play some short, play some first. Heck, I bet he could even pitch or play catcher if he really needed him to in a pinch. Point is, he's been great for the Dodgers. Think Paul LaDuca a few years ago, the former catcher for the Dodgers, who ended up playing all of the positions for the Dodgers. Chris Taylor is that on steroids. He's much better. Great player, great all-around player. Came over, I believe, from the Seattle Mariners. Mariners definitely lost that trade. Chris Taylor was the better player in that deal. Great deal for them. A.J. Pollock, like I said, is not there. He was penciled in to be their DH this year. They have a number of different players they use in that platoon role. They should have no trouble filling that DH spot. They're always willing to make a trade at the deadline. Giving up top prospects has been their issue, whether or not they're willing to give up that top talent. Last year, they sold out and were not able to bring home the World Series. Think Magic Johnson, as far as how much his drive to win is. That ownership group has that same kind of drive in it. That's why they made the deal. That's why they invested all that money in Trevor Bauer, and that's why they've lost all that money in Trevor Bauer. Maybe the cooler heads prevail in the front office, and they're willing to kind of go with a lower payroll, go with the platoon roles, go with what they know, rather than selling out for one of those pieces. But I believe at the deadline, they're going to go for one of those pieces yet again to solidify that lineup. They seem to be in an arms race with the San Diego Padres. On the rotation side, we already talked about Walker Buehler and Julio Urias. Clayton Kershaw was either thought to be going to retirement, to the Rangers, or the Dodgers. For a while, it actually looked like he was leaning towards the Rangers, but ultimately he decides to compete for another World Series. The Rangers are probably a year or two away from competing at that level, and so that's why he comes back home to the Dodgers anyway. The Dodgers are the place where he's been his entire career. Probably chased down a couple more records for the organization anyway. He hasn't been the Clayton Kershaw of old, the best pitcher in all of baseball, but he's still an effective starting pitcher. Mid-3 ERA, but he did have some issues with injury as the season wore down. And in the postseason, that is the number one issue I have with Clayton Kershaw, is will he be there come postseason time? I don't think he will be. I think his body's just starting to wear down at this point. The 1-year, $17 million deal, hometown discount that he gave to the Dodgers was a gift to them, honestly, in my opinion, to be able to keep that rotation intact until some of those other arms come back from injury, Dustin May, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Other names in the rotation we've already mentioned, Andrew Heaney and Tyler Anderson. Andrew Heaney could have a bounce back performance, maybe with the platooning that they do in the rotations anyway in the outfield. Maybe they do some of that mixing and matching in that starting staff, get some younger guys in there, give him a shorter periods. That way he's more effective, can go more max effort, which seems to have worked well for a number of different teams with struggling starters. On the closing side, of course, we do have to mention Kenley Jansen is no longer there. They brought in Craig Kimbrell to take over that ninth inning role. Blake Trinan was their eighth inning guy last year. I'm not sure if they'll move him to the ninth inning or Kimbrell, but in my opinion, Kimbrell's mentality just does not fit the eighth inning role. Trinan did have success in that role, so maybe Kimbrell to start the season is your closer. Trinan is the eighth inning guy. Or if they want to get more acclimated with Kimbrell, maybe they flip that at the beginning. But ultimately, I think it's going to be Kimbrell in the ninth, Trinan in the eighth. There's a number of other ways they could go. I mentioned in an earlier video, maybe they go at the deadline and go after that big piece again and get Josh Hader for that multi-inning relief role, maybe close a few games, that kind of thing. The Brewers are getting close to that time where they're going to have to sell off on their asset. That way they can keep that clock or keep that window of contention open, and Hader might be able to be had this year. Dodgers have shown interest in the past. So to kind of recap, this team has made a lot of acquisitions over the years. Manny Machado, they've sold out for guys like Trey Turner and Max Scherzer and Trevor Bauer. It just hasn't worked a few of those times. They did win one World Series out of all the transitions that they've had throughout the years. So that was kind of what made it worth it that year. Last year, they gave up a lot of top prospects to get the deal done for Scherzer and Turner. They gave up their number one catcher, Keibert Ruiz prospect anyway. They do have a great catcher, possibly the best in the game as of right now anyway, in Will Smith. But they gave up some talent in those trades, and they don't have much to show for it after Scherzer leaves and Seager goes to the Rangers. So let us know in the comment section of where you think the Dodgers end up this year. If you're a Padres fan, do the losses that the Dodgers have sustained, does that propel you enough ahead of them in the division? The next team on the list I want to go through is the San Francisco Giants. Now, the San Francisco Giants had 107 wins last year. I absolutely, without a doubt, do not believe that will ever happen again for the San Francisco Giants with the way the roster is currently constructed. Sorry, Giants fans, I don't believe in your team. This offense had career years across the board. They lost Buster Posey, their catcher. They're going to have to go with a prospect in Joey Bart as their catcher. They got a bunch of journeymen in the lineup. Jock Peterson takes over and left. They did go after some starters, so their starting staff should be very nice this year, and that's the main reason why I believe this is still a quality team. I just don't believe they're a 107-win team. I'm talking maybe 80s, mid-80s at best. This team was way above their head as far as production. Career years from a number of different players who are in their mid-30s. That's not going to repeat itself. Sorry, it's not happening. Put all your money down on anything less than 107 wins if you're a fan of this team or any other team. The Giants are just not getting there. Not happening. Sorry, period. On the starting side, Logan Webb really solidified himself last year, kind of put his footprint out there. He is the ace of this staff. The postseason that he had last year, the games that he was in, he was absolutely dominant and filthy. If I'm an opposing hitter going against Logan Webb, I want no piece of him. That's the day I'm looking at the manager and saying, hey, hamstring's a little tight. Maybe you let the other guy go today. Granted, they're all major leaguers and they all should be able to get hits off of everybody, but Logan Webb is just that dominant. Next, they brought in Carlos Rodon to take over that Kevin Gausman role, who took over in Toronto for that 5-year deal that he got there. I want to say it was $100 million. I can't remember off the top of my head. But Carlos Rodon goes to San Francisco, 2 years, $44 million. He does have an opt-out after this year, which is good for both player and team. Player because he can get back out on the market, reestablish those injury issues that they had about him when he was with the White Sox, where his arm kind of wore down as the season wore on. After another year of finding himself, after the dominance that he had with the White Sox, maybe another year of that fine-tuning it after the success that they had in getting Kevin Gausman the most out of him. Maybe they do the same with Carlos Rodon and build his value the same way. Maybe they get the best out of Rodon. They got career year out of DeSclafani last year. Don't expect that to happen. He's the one weak link in this rotation, aside from Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb, he's kind of a journeyman starter at this point for me. He was great with the Tampa Bay Rays for a number of years, but it's been years now since he was with that team. Alex Wood is another journeyman starter. When he was with the Dodgers, I was expecting great things out of him, and when he was on, but they just didn't trust him for long periods of time. They wouldn't let him go deep in games, and he did find a lot of success last year with the Giants. If they can duplicate that this year, he takes a big step forward in his career and is maybe no longer that journeyman that we currently see him as. Closer, they went young last year, that Camilo Doval. The one thing I will mention about their lineup is LaStella is not going to be ready for opening day. He is going to be their second baseman, leadoff hitter, contact guy. He's the one piece in this lineup that I do actually believe should have a nice year once he comes back from injury. Brandon Belt as well. I believe he got a qualifying offer and accepted it. One of the few guys to actually accept a qualifying offer. Let us know in the comment section about what you think about the Giants, where you think they're going to end up, how good you think they're going to be. Are they a 107, 108 win team? As I already mentioned, absolutely not happening ever. Nope. No, thank you. This team needs to get younger on offense and more impact in that starting lineup. Right now, they just don't have it. Career years out of a number of different over 35 guys is not a method or not a path to success for a sustainable period of time. Last year, 107 wins. Everybody was expecting to kind of fade away as the season wore on, and they just kept on going. It's been a lockout short or in spring training. I don't expect those older veterans to come in and knock the cover off the ball. It's not going to happen. Sorry. Now, as far as the next team that I want to kind of go through, it's going to be the San Diego Padres. Very interesting team. They are looking to trade Chris Paddock as of today. Sounds like they may have a deal coming with the Minnesota Twins. Some of that starting pitching depth going away. Former top prospect. We'll see what the return is for him. But they have a number of different starters that they brought in. Just this week, they acquired Sean Manaea from the Oakland A's. His former manager, and Doug Melvin, is now the manager there, replacing Jace Tingler. They wanted a more proven hand at that manager position. The big story for the Padres, though, is Fernando Tatis. Apparently, over the lockout period, anyway, he suffered multiple motorcycle accidents, one of which suffered an injury, and it's going to keep him out for about 3 months of the season. Doug Melvin, when asked about it, the new manager of the Padres, said he's done riding a motorcycle. What a shock. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that after you just signed a massive contract extension with the Padres. In fact, in his contract language, the Padres could have actually voided the entire deal in its entirety because of those motorcycle accidents. Of course, he's Fernando Tatis Jr. He's very young and probably is going to be able to recover from those injuries. And maybe that's the biggest reason is they just don't want to upset their star player. But they have all the justification they need right now. If I'm part of the management staff of the Padres, I'm sitting right across the table for Fernando Tatis Jr., looking him in the eye and saying, "Are you kidding me? You are the face of baseball going forward. You are not going to be doing these things that are going to risk you being injured. You can have all the fun you want, motorcycles or not, but when you are going through those things, you need to be a lot more safe with those kinds of things." Doug Melvin, apparently he's shown that he's not able to handle riding motorcycles effectively and avoiding accidents. So Doug Melvin kind of put his foot down, and you can't really blame him. As much as this team is going to rely on Fernando Tatis Jr., they need him in the lineup. They're paying him handsomely to be able to have him in that lineup. I think he can give up motorcycle riding until his plans are over. Looking at the rest of the lineup, they do have Manny Machado, who probably pencils in at that shortstop, third base position, depending on how Kim adjusts to a second year in the big leagues. We were expecting big things out of him last year. The bat just didn't play. He came over from Korean baseball, signed a 4-year, $28 million deal with the Padres last year. Just did not go well. Jurickson Profar signed a 3-year deal, or a 3-year extension anyway. I believe it was $21 million that he got from them, so another $7 million a year that they gave to another middle infielder, journeyman type, who can play the corner outfield spots. The one name that they did acquire this offseason from the New York Yankees was Luke Voigt. He probably pencils in as your first base DH option, along with Eric Hosmer, until they're able to trade him, of course. And he may be the other piece going in that Chris Paddock deal to kind of save them some cash, or Will Myers possibly. That's kind of your first base DH platoon there. Jake Cronenworth moves back over to his natural position at second base. They moved Adam Frazier to the Mariners. The fit there just didn't work. Too many middle infielders, too many pieces to try to get at bats to. Adam Frazier was great with the Pirates last year. Not as good with the Padres because of playing time, where he had to play, and those kinds of issues. So logistics just didn't work for him. All the best to him and with Seattle. Maybe some better playing time as far as knowing where he's going to be every day in the batting order, where he's going to be on the field every day, should give him a little bit more consistency that he had with the Pirates before he got dealt to the Padres. The rest of the lineup, they have Austin Nola at catcher. They've had a number of catchers over the years. They've rotated in and out, top prospects, Mejia. They did bring in Jorge Alfaro, the former Rangers top prospect, who went in the Cole Hamels deal to Philadelphia, then the Real Muto deal to the Marlins. Marlins traded him this offseason to the Padres. Former Rangers brass is in the top positions in the Padres right now, and Preller anyway is the GM there, who was with the Rangers at the time when Alfaro was there. Maybe there's a connection there. Maybe they see something in him that they can untap and allow him to get some of that potential out of him. In the outfield, anyway, Trent Grisham is their center fielder, going to be their leadoff hitter. Very good on base guy. Doesn't have a lot of pop in the bat, but he's definitely improved both his defense and his on base ability over the past couple of years. So that lineup is looking very good. The one issue that they had last year, of course, was the starting staff. Everybody either had down years or was injured. Their starting staff just couldn't get it done. In fact, they had a great first half of the year, and then, of course, the Tatis injury and injuries in their starting staff and poor performance caused them to, well, not have a good postseason or, get there. But looking at the starting staff, Yu Darvish is your number one. He should have a good bounce back year this year. Joe Musgrove as well from injury. Blake Snell did not pitch well before his injury. Mike Clevenger, the guy they traded for from the Cleveland Guardians, formerly the Cleveland Indians at the time, they gave up a lot in order to get him. However, things just didn't work out. In his first start, I believe, with the Padres, he suffered a trying to think of the thing. He had a Tommy John. I think it was Tommy John. I forget. But anyway, he suffered injury, missed a year, and maybe now the Padres can finally see what they have in Mike Clevenger. He is going to have the final year, I believe, this year or next year until he hits free agency, so he needs to rebuild his value. But coming off of injury, I expect them to be very patient. They have like 9 different options they can use at the starting in their starting staff, and that was before or after they trade Chris Paddock. They still have a number of different others that they could put in there. Young guys like Weathers they could put in there as well. I already mentioned Sean Manaea. He probably fits in that number 4 or 5 starter until Clevenger gets back in there. But the point is they have a lot of starting pitching options. They did bring in Nick Martinez on a 4-year, $20 million deal. He was formerly in Japan. He did pitch for the United States in the Olympics this year, pitched very well and earned that contract of 4 years, $20 million. Another former Ranger with Ranger connections. So again, hopefully they're not overpaying for guys they know, like they did with Jerks and Profar and that kind of a thing. But maybe they finally get some potential out of him. $5 million a year for the next 4 years. If they get the production that Martinez provided in the Olympics, they should be set as far as depth. Maybe he's a long reliever ultimately for them this season. But looking at it, this rotation has a lot of options. They need some bounce back years, though, and until they do, they have a lot of questions to answer. The one issue, of course, that they do have is Fernando Tatis Jr. injury. Will he be able to come back and be the same guy he was before? When he came back from injury last year, he had some arm issues playing shortstop, wasn't able to get the ball across the diamond fast enough to first base to complete the out, that kind of a thing. They moved him to left field for at least a little while. I don't expect that to ever happen again. I expect him to be at shortstop or nowhere going forward. But the injury is a concern for me. The injury that he had last year and then coming back with the arm issue, another concern for me. So it'll be interesting to see how Tatis comes back to the Padres. Let us know in the comment section where you think they end up this season. Do you think they've done enough with their offense without moving Hosmer yet in order to win the division? I don't think so. It sounded like they were in on Cruz and Suzuki, missed on both of them. Cruz goes to the Nationals, Suzuki to the Cubs. It sounded like Yu Darvish put on a full court press, taking him, walking him through the entire facility, trying to build that connection, and the Cubs just blew the doors off of him, and he didn't go back to the Padres. The other players that they've been in on, Jose Ramirez signs the extension with the Guardians. He got a full no-trade clause that takes him through his age 35 season to stay with Cleveland. It'll be interesting to see if Jose Ramirez does want out. Maybe this is just a precursor to get cost certainty for other teams so that they can get better prospect haul back. But this only goes through his age 35 season. I think if they were going to do something like that and trade him, it probably would have been a longer deal. But this deal fits with the Cleveland Guardians. However, if you're a Padres fan, it's another name that you did not get. The last one on the board that they have left to pursue is Brian Reynolds for center field. Now, they have Trent Grisham there, but they can always move him to a corner and put Brian Reynolds in center. He'd be a very nice fit for them, on-base guy, get in front would hit in front of Cronenworth, Machado, Tatis, those kinds of hitters. But he's a very talented player. We'll see what kind of haul it takes in order to get him. But I believe the Pirates will move him this season anyway. The question will be: are the Padres willing to make that deal? Is it worth it to be able to get that center fielder when you already have Trent Grisham? Remains to be seen. To me, this team needs a power bat. Maybe Luke Voigt is that guy for them. but he hasn't been enough of a power hitter in order to justify him being the lone power guy in your lineup. So we'll see what kind of production they get out of him, or if they go after another power guy at the deadline. Starting staff, if they don't get rebounds in production from most of the staff, it's going to be a long year from that starting staff. Bullpen could use a little bit of work. They have Robert Suarez back there, but again, the story for the Padres is Fernando Tatis Jr. When he comes back healthy, how far back in the standings are they going to be, and are they going to be able to make up enough ground once he gets back? Next on the list is going to be the Colorado Rockies. Now, the Rockies, of course, did bring in Chris Bryant this offseason in a mystifying move. I believe it was a 7-year, $186 million deal. A year after they trade away Nolan Arenado to the St. Louis Cardinals, after they were not able to form a team around him because of salary concerns. Now, of course, they had other deals that just haven't worked out for them. Of course, the Ian Desmond deal, the McGee, the Shaw deals in the bullpen. Blackman, of course, is on a big deal as well. They did sign Ryan McMahon, their third baseman, to an extension as well. That'll keep him in Colorado for 6 more years. Brendan Rodgers, a former top prospect, takes over at the second base shortstop spot with the loss of Trevor Story to Boston. Jose Iglesias was brought in on a 1-year deal. If Brendan Rodgers can provide the bat that we thought he would when he was drafted, this team should do much better. They have a lot of interchangeable pieces. Chris Bryant can play all over the field, left field, right field, third base, second base. He's played shortstop in the past, first base. He's kind of a jack of all trades. CJ Cron provides the power in this lineup. And, if you're in Colorado, you're going to hit a lot of homers. So you need some guys who can actually put that ball in the seats, and they do have that in spades with Cron, McMahon, Bryant, and Blackman. They do need to get some production out of Rodgers. A couple of young guys that they also have that they're looking at, Connor Joe, Elias Diaz. They did bring in Nolan Grichuk to play their center field position. They traded him for Tapia with the Toronto Blue Jays. If he can provide the production that he did with the St. Louis Cardinals, there seems to be a lot of history between the Rockies and Cardinals, but they seem to flip players, and every now and again, one will hit from the other team and won't hit for the other. Will hit for one team, but won't hit for the other. Maybe Grichuk finds some more success with the Rockies now that he's moved on. As far as the starting staff, German Marquez is your starter, or is your ace of the staff right now. Kyle Freeland is there. They did lose John Gray to the Texas Rangers, so they will lose his production. Austin Gomber is still there. Chad Kuhl, I can't pronounce the name, Kuhl. Anyway, and Antonio Sensatella are also there in the starting staff. Kind of journeyman starters in that are in there, but with the Rockies, it's always been about the ineffectiveness of their starters and being able to hit enough to overcome it. Will they be able to get enough journeyman production out of that starting staff to be able to remain in contention late into August and September? I don't think so, but maybe those younger pieces will progress that are on the offensive side of the ball. Closer, they did bring in Alex Colomé. He should provide some solutions for them at that spot. They've had some issues in the bullpen for a number of years. Maybe he locks down that position for them. The one other name that I will mention is they should have Sam Hilliard as well. He should earn time in center. They have Hampton as well, kind of another jack-of-all-trades type of player, Garrett Hampson, that they can move everywhere around the diamond. So they do have a very nice, diverse lineup. The starting staff, of course, is journeyman, but they need that lineup to really be mashers if they're going to do anything as far as stay in contention. The last team in this division is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, this team has been trying to get young for a number of years. They brought in a lot of young starters, and they've got good young starters now. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Luke Weaver. They also have Tyler Gilbert in that starting staff, headlined by Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner has not been good, though. He's not the ace of this staff, although he is by name recognition only. The best pitcher, though, is Zach Gallen and Luke Weaver. We'll see what kind of success they can have. Ketel Marte just signed an extension with them. I believe it was a 6 years, $70 million deal as well, or 4 years, 70, somewhere in there anyway. But he has been their best player over the past few years, and who can blame him for signing that extension? He seems to have finally found a home there after a number of teams have moved him around. The deal that brought him there was the Mitch Haniger deal with the Mariners. And while the D-backs have not been very good, he's been one of the few bright spots on the team. Varsho is going to be your center fielder, young guy. Christian Walker, another young guy. David Peralta is probably one of the older players on this team now. He probably gets moved at the deadline as kind of a corner outfielder, bat kind of a person. Pavin Smith, anyway, is going to be another outfielder for you. A lot of youth in this team. The one older guy that they do have still in their lineup is going to be Nick Ahmed at shortstop, and I say older guy with air quotes because he ain't that old either. But this is still a very young team. Carson Kelly is still your catcher. Maybe they get some progression out of them, and Josh Rojas is going to be your third baseman. They no longer have Jake Lamb there. So youth is going to be the name of the game for the Diamondbacks. We'll see if any of those bats come around and actually have a good year. Starting staff has been a lot better over the past couple of years, but they still need to continue to make strides there. In the bullpen, they did bring in Mark Melancon to lock down the games that they do have the lead in. Their bullpen is atrocious for the last few years. Getting a closer like him should help lock down things for them and be able to secure a few wins that they've let slip away in the late innings over the last few years. So kind of recapping it, we have the Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, and Rockies in the division. So let's see. Without further ado, let's kind of get to the predictions. For me, in the last place and fifth in the division is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. While the younger starting staff, who's very good, has produced very well for them, it's all about the youth for them. They need that youth to really come through. I don't see them winning more than 60, 65 games this year, and that's only because the starting staff is very good and very young. If they stagnate, if they take regression in that starting staff, they could be underneath that 60 win mark. If Madison Bumgarner has a little bit of a resurgence year, maybe they move him at the deadline for some more young pieces, and I expect Peralta to be moved at the deadline as well. Fourth is going to be the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies, they just didn't do enough. I don't understand the way they run their team. I really don't. The move for Chris Bryant is absolutely mystifying. No knock on the player, no knock on the contract either. The question is, was this the right team for that contract and that player? For me, Chris Bryant should have gone to a number of other teams that would have given him probably very similar offers. We've already mentioned in the last video anyway, with the Philadelphia Phillies, they chose to divvy up their money between two players in Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos instead of putting all that money in one basket with Chris Bryant, even though he did have a connection with Harper, Las Vegas boys, and all that with Joey Gallo. But they chose to split up their money between a couple of different players. The other team I thought probably should have been in on it a little bit harder was the Seattle Mariners and the San Diego Padres. The Padres, of course, could use a corner outfielder. They do have a lot of money tied up in Hosmer and Will Myers. So if they were able to offload those deals without holding back a lot of money, maybe they could have played in the Chris Bryant pool a little bit longer. But without him, that lineup is severely lacking some mashers. Now, as far as the Mariners, they've been looking at Chris Bryant for a number of years. They do bring in Jesse Winker to play in that outfield. That's a very loaded outfield, by the way. And we also heard this offseason that they're going to break camp with their number one overall prospect in Julio Rodriguez. Another outfielder makes the squad. They have Trammell, they have Kyle Long, they have Mitch Haniger, Winker, Rodriguez. That's five outfielders that deserve playing time. It'll be interesting to see how the Mariners do it. But for my money, getting Chris Bryant there instead of Eugenio Suarez would have been much better. Play him at third base, takes over for Kyle Seager, and solidifies that spot for you. But the Rockies get the deal done. Again, it's a very mystifying contract. I still don't understand. I don't. You weren't able to pay Nolan Arenado. You paid $51 million of Nolan Arenado's contract for him to play in the same conference as you, or in the same National League, and you still paid the you still paid the St. Louis Cardinals money in order to make the move happen. Your best player on your team you let walk, and then your second best player, because of how things went with him and the other players on your roster and your inability to invest money wisely and spend it on Ian Desmond and McGee and Shaw, you lost your second best player in Trevor Story to the Boston Red Sox for nothing. I do not understand the way the Colorado Rockies build their roster. That's why I have them in fourth. They're going to need some progression out of their young lineup, and they're going to need those journeyman starters to have great years. I don't see both of those happening, but if I was a Colorado Rockies fan, I'm rooting for that lineup to really take off. If you can get Brandon Rodgers to actually embrace that potential they thought he once had, this team is a much better outlook going forward. He probably takes over that shortstop spot next year from Jose Iglesias if he hits that superstar potential that we all thought he had. Third place is going to go to the San Francisco Giants. I've already mentioned how much I'm not a fan of their 107-win season. I just am not a believer in them at all. That lineup is all old. They lost Buster Posey. They're bringing in a rookie younger player anyway, in Joey Bart. He did play in the COVID shortened season in 2020. Things did not go well that year for him. I don't expect another year in the minors and him not being able to to break camp with the Giants last year as a good sign. I expect this team to take a massive step backward. That starting staff is the only thing holding that team together. And while I expect them to be decent, 80 wins ish, I don't expect them to be in contention for the division at all. The Dodgers are going to run away and hide with this one along with the Padres, depending on health. The two teams I have left for 1 and 2 are the Padres and the Dodgers. Now, we've already mentioned the Fernando Tatis injury, and that's the biggest reason why I'm putting the Padres at number 2. If Tatis was healthy the entire year, if the rotation comes back and has a better year than they did last year, this team probably competes with the Dodgers for the number 1 spot in the entire league. But Tatis isn't there. They didn't sign a number of different hitters that they could have to provide some pop in that lineup. They were not able to offload the Hosmer deal. They traded away one of their former top prospects, or they're going to trade one of their former top prospects in Chris Paddock to the Minnesota Twins. We'll see what the return is. They just didn't do enough, in my estimation, to justify being in contention for that number 1 spot in the division. But with that said, that obviously means the class of this division is still the Los Angeles Dodgers. Even with the loss of Max Scherzer, Corey Seager, Kenley Jansen, cornerstone pieces for any franchise, they're still the best team in the division with those losses. Now, they bring in Craig Kimbrell to take over that 9th-inning role. They still have Blake Trinan back there as well in the starting staff. They still have Clayton Kershaw, but again, injury issues worry me. They have a number of different starters coming back from injury as the season progresses as well. They still have Trey Turner and Mookie Betts, so any team with those two pieces, you've got a very good team. The speed alone between those two, very dynamic. This team is going to be bananas to watch. But they don't have the depth that they once had. The DH going to the National League certainly helps them out. They are an attractive destination for free agents. They had Albert Pujols last year, kind of a pinch hitting role, but this year's all going to have a DH. With the platooning that they have, they can kind of give them more regular at-bats and possibly see an increase in production by giving them more consistent at-bats. So let us know in the comment section about where you think your team or where your team ranks, how you think they're going to end up this year. But again, just to kind of run through it, 5th place, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks. 4th, Colorado Rockies. 3rd, Giants. 2nd, Padres. And 1st, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Thank you for joining us, for joining us through each division as we go team by team, lineup by lineup, rotation by rotation. Opening day is tomorrow, so hopefully your team has a great opening day. We've already seen a couple of cancellations or postponements anyway due to weather, but hopefully we won't miss any games of 162 this year. Lockout is over. Baseball is back. The off season is finally over, and baseball is set to begin. Let's hope everybody has a great opening day and great season this year. And thank you for joining us here at The Upside. If you haven't hit that subscribe button already, please do so. Please and thank you. And thanks again for joining us here at The Upside.